See, I don't know why I didn't get super there. I'm still a little befuddled sometimes when I do DP into level 3 with the SOCD shortcuts. Sometimes it activates, sometimes it doesn't, and I still don't exactly know why. Roy! This won't kill, will it? Oh, killed, okay. Don't let him win. Oh, I was gonna let him win. Sorry, that was my original intention, but now that you told me to not let him win. Oh, you didn't fall for the Roy at the end? Oh, they didn't. That didn't punish? Alright, GG's, GG's. Oh, GG's, I don't know who that was. Wow, suddenly it's GG's, I don't know who that was when things don't go your way. So, not necessarily by choice, but because I'm forced to try a little bit because I'm going to Japan to play in the Super Premiere, I'm going to start playing a little bit of Ed now. But now it's time to give my final thoughts on Terry in review a month too late. So, do I think he's E tier, like Mago-san here says? Do I think he's bottom of D tier, like Nemo says? Well, I guess I'd like to go through at least a few of his basic strengths and weaknesses, and then let you know how I think about him overall, because there's been a lot of doom and gloom about this character. So, Terry's strengths, for one, he is a low forward drive rush enthusiast, and his crouching medium kick has really good range. It's one of the furthest range crouching MKs in the game, so at certain spacings where even like Luke crouching MK will whiff, Terry crouching MK can actually connect instead. So low forward drive rush, crouching medium kick drive rush is super strong. Like, I don't care who you are, if you have a decent crouching medium kick, and Terry has a great one, and you can drive rush cancel into a jab and make it an airtight block string, that's a huge part of like the Street Fighter 6 meta. You're part of the haves instead of the have-nots in this case, and Terry is part of the haves when it comes to crouching MK drive rush. He also is unique in the sense that he has a target combo out of it, which is pretty good because it allows him to potentially get this crouching medium kick, fish for it, and get some damage in corner carry without having to spend drive meter. Now, it does have some downsides. It's not perfect in that it's not really hit confirmable as far as I know on the first hit. You hit confirm whether or not it actually connects in the second hit, and then you choose your cancel option. So the idea being, if they don't block, you just cancel maybe into like a heavy burn knuckle for corner carry, or in the corner you can do it into like the medium flip kick and get a juggle. But if it's blocked instead, you can hit confirm that either into drive rush cancel, into like a jab, or you can even go into something like quick burn on block for a block string. Now, the drive rush cancel into jab is never a true string. So this, if they're really on point and they have the meter to just OD DP straight through it, or potentially even do a super as well, there's always a gap here. Now, on the other hand, the quick burn, there's no gap. This is a block string, but what ends up happening is there's no mix here on block, right? Any other special move you cancel into, there's a gap. There's no way to make this a true block string safely. So you can do quick burn, which is an overhead, but it's -5 on block. And most people now, they easily just, after blocking this, you just hold back. There's no way to threaten a low here. And then either you do your DP OS or you just mash stand jab. So if you do stand jab though and they drive rush cancel, I believe that will be the frame trap. So if they crouching light punch, you can frame trap with that. But it's very easy to see if they drive rush cancel or not. So this does have some way for you to save yourself and catch them off guard if you do it on block. But if they're really on point with their DP drive rush cancel OS and just react to it with DP every single time, they can do the DP, then block the overhead, and then you're going to get punished. Pretty much guaranteed against a high-level opponent if they don't mess it up. So it's good to have, but it also comes with some risk. So it's not a guaranteed answer, but it does enhance, I would say, his crouching medium kick for sure. Now, another good thing about Terry is, of course, his, I would say, his level 2 utility. The fact that his level 2 is unique and that it lets him do this unique damage output. There's many situations where you can extend with level 2 and just use the drive meter extension to kill in situations where you don't have to use level 3. And you can just do more damage in a lot of routing. Like, his max damage is actually really high with the full level 2 meter dump with all 3 meters and your drive meter. So he does have that X factor, I would say, in the final round, where he can potentially do more damage than you can output, or also close a round early with level 2 early and preserve meter. So I think that makes him unique, and it's a unique, strong aspect about him. Another good thing, Burn Knuckle's a really good move. Like, this move is kind of like the closest thing we have to a dash punch from Balrog in this game. Now, it has 2 variations, the medium Burn Knuckle and then the heavy Burn Knuckle, and you have to space it properly to make it safe, but it's not that hard to space, and you can see here, if you space it properly, you get the screen shake on either variation. You can get +1 there, and I think +1, or up to +4 in the heavy, right? So it is a pretty strong move to get in. Like, it adds another layer to his neutral, and it helps cover his ranges out here, because you always have the threat of Burn Knuckle. Like, say you're doing a zoning game, they can't just approach blindly because Burn Knuckle might get in. So that's very good. Another strong thing about Terry is his light punch fireball and medium punch fireball. They're not bad as fireballs. They have unique properties, like they're on the ground, sort of like a jury fireball, and then the medium fireball also has like a hitbox that will dissipate other fireballs on it as well. And the unique thing about it is that it's actually a pretty good parry bait. So say your opponent is actually trying to react to these things with parry. If you do light fireball here, they can parry it. But if you space out your medium so that it whiffs, you might think of that as a downside. But if they try to react tap parry, they'll whiff their parry, which will spend half a bar of drive meter and then lock them out of a drive meter recovery for a little bit of time. So here, let me show an example of this in the Terry mirror. So say Terry is trying to zone you with this pattern. You parry the first fireball, then you try to parry the second. You're locked out of parry. You're locked out of drive meter recovery for a little bit of time for whiffing that parry. And on top of that, it can get even more devious because they can do things such as this to really make it count, to make you concerned about parrying. So it's possible to try to react parry to this and then get punish counter throw. It's kind of hard to demonstrate with the recording, but this is a real setup where you can actually punish. Yeah, kind of like that. You can actually dry rush if you see them tap parry to parry your medium fireball and get a punish counter throw. And even if that doesn't happen, you can start throwing regular fireballs and keep chipping up the drive meter. So what it ends up happening here is there's a mind game. There is counterplay to this. They can just do this and drive rush at you if they see you drive rush towards them. So this is not exactly foolproof if they're expecting it. There is counterplay, so it's not the greatest thing in the world, but you'll catch unsuspecting opponents a lot sleeping with that drive rush throw. But the main thing also is that it just makes it so that you can mix up your fireballs and you can keep trying to play this game where having them whiff parry is a huge plus for your game plan of getting them burned out. So he has that unique aspect, it's kind of like a fake fireball aspect to his gameplay. He also has a decent jump-in, does Terry, or sorry, not a decent jump-in, a decent anti-air. So he has an uppercut. The light one is the one that hits like the most horizontal or the least horizontal movement, and it's 5 frames. His heavy, it does more damage, and it's slower, 7 frames, but it goes very horizontal. So you have the ability to swap which one you want to do if they're further away. For most jump-ins that are approaching your head, you're actually going to use light always. Now, it does have this thing where that can happen. It's very easy, or susceptible, I would say, to having it whiff with jump-ins that are approaching too steep of an arc above your head. So, but that's solvable. Like, you can cross-cut with it. You're just going to have to cross-cut. So it's still, I think it's overall a really solid uppercut. There's occasionally situations where like this will whiff though, and you didn't really expect it to. Kind kind of a skill issue, but it's also kind of extra mental stack to deal with. So, not the best uppercut, but still a really solid uppercut. And one of the another pros that Terry has is he has a 6-frame crouching medium punch. Having a 6-frame medium is definitely like a privileged class of medium, because many moves in this game are -6, and a lot of characters do not have 6-frame mediums. And one of the key things for that is things like drive reversal, right? So, whoa, not that. So if people like to wake up with drive reversal, that is -6. So if you don't have a 6-frame medium, your damage output from these situations is so heavily scaled, like you start from a light. But with Terry, because he can start from a medium, he can do a ton of damage in these situations and just completely convert and put out a ton of damage here. I think I have a better combo. So he has the potential to do huge damage, and this is meter efficient without even doing anything to go into burnout, right? I think you can do more if you go into level 3 in this situation. Let me double check. Yeah, with CA, this would do more damage. And I think that's still not optimal. Is the optimal one? I actually do not remember. But the point being, having a 6-frame crouching medium punch like this, yeah, even more damage there. Having a 6-frame crouching medium punch is a really, really privileged thing to have in this game, and you heavily feel the difference in a lot of situations. So that is definitely one stronger aspect about Terry in this game. But it's definitely not all good. Terry does have some significant weaknesses, in my opinion, and all of his tools definitely have downsides. So his burn knuckle, like I mentioned before, I think is really strong, but it's very easy to be perfect parried, in my opinion. I think the player base day one was already reacting to these moves and perfect parrying them on reaction, and they do have utility for being used, say, like as a meaty. So you could use these to have these meaty setups like this. And that would be plus, but it's so easy to react to the fact that the burn knuckle is coming and time the meaty. He also has this heavy power geyser, or power wave, which is really good because it's +10 on, or +5 on block, but it can be super meaty with tons of active frames and be upwards of +10, I believe. And it's a great meaty that you would want to do maybe after like a basic B&B combo, because it's a meaty projectile, right? Meaty projectiles beat wake up level 1s. So a common situation you might want to go for is after this, just meaty with this, and then you can get a full combo, right? But it's also extremely telegraphed. So a lot of the times people will see this, and instead of waking up with a level 1 super or anything like that, it ends up just being fodder for them to just simply perfect parry on wake up and with meaty timing, right? So his moves have strong utility, but I think parry really makes them kind of weak. He kind of needs burn knuckle to cross the screen. I don't think he has great ways to move around the screen that much besides burn knuckle, and I think it becomes a liability when someone's perfect parries are really on point. So another weakness with Terry is his fireball game. While it's kind of good because he can throw medium fireball to dissipate another person's actual projectile, his light one goes underneath them. So in some situations, you could see this as a pro, because he gets into unique fireball situations where his will just phase through and punish theirs instead of just canceling each other. So like in that kind of an exchange, you could argue that it's a really good thing to have, right? So that is a pro in some situations, but I would argue that overall, he gets into situations where he's unable to keep up with zoning because you can't use your fireball defensively to clear the next fireball that's approaching you and gain ground. You always have to defend against the fireball with a block or parry or neutral jump yourself. So the lack of ability to safely clash with the fireball up close is not great. Now, you can use medium fireball to do that, but I find this fireball to be, it's kind of slower startup, And then if you're not clashing with a projectile, it just dissipates. So if it hits the mid-screen level of the Fireball War and you're predicting that they're going to throw a Fireball, you might just end up whiffing the Fireball. So it has flexibility and it's dynamic, and which is a strength of it. But I would argue, I think a traditional Fireball is better in a Fireball battle over time. And its OD Fireball, while it's really slow and has this nice crawl effect where you can walk behind it and get in, which is good, the hit and block stun is so short that it's really hard to convert from or even get a block string. Like, it's so easy for the opponent to mash out of it if you're not just like exactly behind it. So you often find like you throw this, and if they're just mashing, crouching, light punch on block, like you see how short the block stun is here? Like, you don't get any frame advantage really from falling behind this. It's so hard to take your turn back behind the Fireball. So I got counter hit like that. So I do think his Fireballs are weaker. Like, he doesn't have a good Fireball drive rush sort of approach. Like, you can do that, but it's not as strong as like a regular like Ken style OD Fireball to drive rush. And it has another unique weakness, which is, I guess, you know, this might be shared by Jury as well. So because his Fireball travels on the ground, things like Honda Headbutt go straight over this projectile, right? Now, you can use medium, like I said, to snipe it sometimes, but if you try to use things preemptively, you can't throw any full-screen projectiles really safely. Headbutt is always potentially going to phase through and do way more damage to you than you would have done to Honda. And the same thing applies to things like Zangief Headbutt as well, or not Headbutt, sorry, the knee. It has the similar properties as Jury Fireball, but without the ability to easily follow behind it as much for pressure. Jury can very easily dry rush behind her regular Fireball. Terry can't really get in that well behind his regular Fireball. So I think it has a lot of the downsides of Jury's Fireball without a lot of the upsides. It has some unique applications, but I think overall, Terry's Fireball game is definitely weaker than like a traditional Shoto. And so I definitely think that he has overall a weaker Fireball game, even though he has unique advantages in other situations as well. The next main thing that makes Terry kind of weak, and I think this one's pretty big, is these heavies, man. His heavy punch leaves so much to be desired. And I think it's a really uniquely designed move for combo structure utility, because they divvied up this move into 2 hits, and they didn't just do that for shits and giggles. There's an actual logic behind it. They distributed the damage between 2 hits because it makes you have to think really thoroughly about his combo structure and conversions. So the stand heavy on the first hit is the one with the most amount of hit stun, so it actually allows you to combo into things like heavy tackle, which is central to his combo conversions. But the second hit normally does not combo into heavy tackle. But that means that if you get into things like drive rush cancel conversions into it, like something maybe like that, then you can let both hits rock and get into the heavy tackle, right? So you end up having to think pretty thoroughly about your conversions. Like if you go from a crouching MK, for example, you might want to go into a drive rush crouching heavy instead. Or if you want to extend it all the way with multiple drive rush cancels, then you'll do medium into heavy, and then you can do double heavy on the drive rush extension and still get the tackle to combo. So they do make you think about that pretty thoroughly, but you end up in a lot of situations because the range is so lackluster that things like this happen. I've been in so many matches where I'm trying to get a 6-frame punish or a quick punish from a punish counter medium to a heavy, and that'll happen. This is so easy to have happen to you in a real match. And then this heavy tackle that you cancel into is a commitment. Like, you're just screwed after that. You are negative $1 billion for something that should have easily been a punish counter conversion, because if you're just a few pixels closer, it combos no problem. There's no issue. But there's so many instances because the range on the first active frame is so lackluster that the real animation actually just pulls them out of the range, and you don't get the conversion. Now, of course, you can stabilize this. You can do things like go into crouching medium target combo, but you're sacrificing damage in a lot of situations for safety. in ways that you don't feel like you should have to. Like, I don't see why you couldn't just give this a slight buff to the range here, so that this situation where you pressed it on a link that should combo, and then the first active frame just doesn't connect us to the real animation, just give it a little bit more juice. Because you also have no utility for this, really, like, as a tool in neutral. Like, it covers somewhat of a decent range. Like, you can kind of walk around and incorporate it with your poking game, like maybe heavy punch to medium fireball or something like that. But it doesn't have that Ryu, Ken, stiff arm Shoto stand heavy punch, which has so much utility for those types of characters, right? And Terry is very close to being a Shoto in this game. So, I mean, just compare these heavy punches. This heavy punch is 10 frame startup, 5 active frames. On block, it's -2, and it can be meaty to be made plus, and there's a whole mind game with it with Jinrai cancels behind it, right? So compare this, the God Heavy Punch, to this one. Like, it's just no comparison. There's absolutely no planet where Terry's Heavy Punch is the one that wins against Ken's Stand Heavy Punch. And I'm not trying to say that it needs to be as good as Ken's Stand Heavy Punch. It's absurd, but it just needs more juice. It's becoming a liability. And the other aspects of these heavies is look at the drive meter damage that this does. Terry, I think because of the lack of strong heavies, and it's not just his stand heavy kick is decent, but it's not like a Ken stand heavy kick. And I think it's a strong move, but it's not amazing. But the lack of a strong heavy punch like this, it really makes it so that his block string pressure and drive meter pressure up close, like how he damages your drive meter, it's very weak. He has really weak drive gauge damage once he's able to actually get in. It does do a lot of drive gauge damage if you get both hits, but you're not going to get both hits often, and when you're out here at a more safer range to start your offense, you can't even use it. It just whiffs. So I think that makes him significantly weaker than comparable characters in this game. And yeah, it's so frustrating getting the punch counter to stand heavy punch and it doesn't connect. You have to sacrifice damage in so many situations for safety. Like, I shouldn't have to worry about this happening. And it's so easy to even have happen in training mode. So I think that really hurts his damage output and his offensive drive gauge pressure in many situations. Along those same lines, I think the last thing that I think makes Terry pretty weak is his inability to have really strong pressure from lights. So I'll show an example with a character with very strong pressure from lights. So a common aspect of this game that you might want to have implemented in your gameplay is having strong light string pressure that can push you out to be left at a safe range, so that you're able to create enough pushback from a block string where you're not in the danger zone of your opponent counterattacking. So the issue with this light string, which is a common 3-hit light string, is that after 3 lights, I'm still in range for them to do crouching medium kick, crouching medium punch, and also remember the last light is -1. So of course, if they try to challenge between this chain sequence, they're going to get counter hit, right? That's why this sequence is so powerful. But if they just block it out, you're left negative in range for them to move first. And so you do have some options. Like, there is stand light kick, but this is not a chain and this is a gap. This is good in some situations because if they do try to like retaliate with a medium that reaches, like a crouching medium punch here for Ed, you can potentially counter poke that with the stand light kick and then buffer that maybe to something, right? So you do have some utility, but the problem is this does not reach if they're just blocking. Like, even if they're crouching, you are preemptively buffering this, which is a risk. It's a risk, because if they just don't press anything and they delay their button slightly, you're gonna whiff, and they'll just do crouching medium punch or crouching medium kick into drive rush into a full combo. And the other issue is, from this, you don't have any good special move cancels to stop them from mashing in this situation. So once you do the 3 lights, you are pretty much at the mercy of a mind game where you are negative and they are at advantage. Like, you're gonna have to do something unsafe. You can't even do Some characters you can do quick burn. Yeah, I'm surprised this is actually hitting. A lot of times even quick burn here will whiff on the opponent's jab, and they'll end up interrupting you before the second hit connects. So he has very weak tools to end his block strings. Like sometimes you can do OD Fireball. That's sometimes an option, but it really depends, right? Like they do Crouching Light Kick. So Ed has like a god 5 frame with Crouching Light Kick. So you really can't do anything here. Now other characters like, look at Ken again. He has Jin Rai, which is always a safe special. And other characters also, conversely, like Ed, if we swap sides here, and I demonstrate that here, Ed has a decent string. So even though I mentioned before you're negative after that final stand jab, Ed's Crouching Light Kick is 5 frames, and you see when I block, it actually makes contact, where Terry's stand light kick whiffs in this situation. So if I try to take my turn back with something like my Crouching Medium Kick here, I'm just going to get counter hit. I'm just going to simply get counter hit. If I try to jab, I can potentially jab out of here, but a lot of times jabs will just whiff as well. Like if I try to do like a stand light punch, I can do that maybe. So Ed has a string that will stop people from using their mediums. I mean, we might trade. Even in my 5 frame medium, you see we trade. So it's a low risk option for Ed to try to stop you from overextending in this moment, and he can kind of lock you down. Terry is really lacking in that department from his strings. He's really lacking in ways to keep his pressure going once he overcommits to too many lights or overcommits to like any kind of pressure sequence. So it's really difficult for him to maintain his turn because he has no 5 frame that can reach and no special cancels that are strong as well. So Ed has the string that can reach with the Crouching Light Kick, and then Ken and other characters have better special cancels that can get you thinking twice about taking your turn back after any sort of string. So that makes it so that he is very much playing the Street Fighter game of you might be mashing Crouching Medium Kick after any button that I press, and it can be problematic for him keeping his turn. So with that said, I think the most important thing to remember is also the fun factor. Is Terry fun? Yes, Terry is very fun. His Zona game, while I think is not the strongest, I think there is a fun aspect to it. He has funny voice lines, landing level 2 combos where it does way too much damage and their life bar is just depleting. Feels really good. And then of course he has probably the best combo in the game, with just Are You Okay? Stand MK, counter hit, link into level 1. This is so satisfying to fish for. That can happen though. You do have to be careful about the range. It's more consistent in the corner. So even with that, there's some problems occasionally with making it happen. But Terry's cool. He has a lot of personality. I think his moves look sick. I think he's satisfying to play. So he's like a 7.5 out of 10 for me in terms of fun factor. But, you know, what does that mean in terms of tier placement? Is he D tier? Is he E tier? Well, I think he's just middle of the pack, man. I think he's maybe like a C tier or whatever you might want to call it. I don't think he's weak. I think no character that has a Crouching Medium Kick and an OD reversal and a Fireball is going to be weak in this game. I guess that would be Jamie. But Jamie, any character that doesn't also require an Oki trade-off to actually access your moves will be pretty good. So I don't think he's weak, but he's also one of the characters that falls into that awkward position where he's outclassed by other characters that do similar things to him. I don't see a reason to play him over like Ryu or Ken or Kuma. And he's definitely sort of like a Shoto. And so unless you're playing for fun, I think the competitive scene, most players will gravitate towards one of those Shoto-like characters. If you're playing for fun, he's definitely solid and can get the job done. And he's fun to play. So, are you okay, Terry? Yeah, Terry. You're okay.